A bright Texas afternoon. A motorcade glides through Dealey Plaza. The crowd cheers as President John F. Kennedy, the symbol of a new generation, waves from his open limousine. Then, gunfire. A sudden explosion of chaos. The cheers turn to screams. The president slumps forward. The First Lady reaches out, her pink dress now stained with blood. The world stops. Within hours, the news spreads the president is dead. The suspect, a lone gunman named Lee Harvey Oswald, is captured. The government moves quickly to reassure the public Oswald acted alone. No conspiracy, no deeper plot. But the people watching the events unfold on television aren't so sure. Something doesn't feel right. Witnesses claim shots came from different directions. The supposed assassin is murdered before he can testify. And for decades, classified documents remain locked away from the public eye. Could it really be that simple? One man acting alone, changing the course of history? Or was this something far bigger, something planned, orchestrated, and covered up at the highest levels? The assassination of John F. Kennedy was not just a tragedy. It was a seismic event that shattered trust in the U.S. government. Before that day, people believed in the integrity of the system. But the moment those shots rang out in Dealey Plaza, something changed. The public began to question everything. And when the Warren Commission released its official report, stating unequivocally that Oswald was the sole assassin, the doubts only deepened. Because the evidence didn't add up. The bullet wounds, the eyewitness testimonies, the suspect's own bizarre death, every detail seemed to create more questions than answers. If the case was truly closed, why were so many files classified for decades? Why did key witnesses die under mysterious circumstances? And why did later investigations, some conducted by the government itself, suggest that more than one gunman was involved? Today, we unravel one of the greatest mysteries of modern history. We'll examine the infamous magic bullet theory, the shadowy figures lurking behind the scenes, the second shooter evidence, and the powerful enemies Kennedy made in his short presidency. We'll dive into the motives, the cover-ups, and the terrifying possibility that those in power might have rewritten history. By the end, you'll see why this conspiracy refuses to die, and why the truth might be far more disturbing than we ever imagined. To accept the Warren Commission's conclusion, you have to believe in the existence of a so-called magic bullet. This single projectile, fired from Oswald's rifle, supposedly hit Kennedy in the back, exited through his throat, and then struck Texas Governor John Connally, shattering a rib, puncturing a lung, breaking his wrist, and finally embedding itself in his thigh. Forensics experts have analyzed this theory for decades, and the overwhelming conclusion, it's highly improbable. The bullet's trajectory would have required impossible mid-air turns. More than that, when the bullet was found, it was in near pristine condition. Not deformed, not shattered, not carrying clear evidence of having struck bone. Governor Connally himself rejected the theory. He insisted until his dying day that the bullet that hit him was not the same one that struck Kennedy. If he was right, then at least one more bullet was fired. And that means a second shooter. Then there's the infamous Grassy Knoll. In the moments after the assassination, dozens of eyewitnesses ran toward a wooden fence on a small hill overlooking the motorcade. Many swore they had heard gunfire from that direction. Some even claimed to have seen smoke rising from behind the fence. And then there's the Zapruder film, the most analyzed piece of footage in history. In it, Kennedy's head snaps backward upon impact. But if Oswald fired from behind, shouldn't the force have pushed Kennedy forward? Ballistics experts argue that the impact suggests a shot from the front, from the direction of the Grassy Knoll. Years later, in 1979, the House Select Committee on Assassinations conducted an audio analysis of a police recording from the crime scene. Their conclusion? There was high probability that a second shooter fired a shot. In other words, even the US government admitted there was likely more than one gunman. And yet, nothing was done about it. These are just the pieces of the puzzle we know about. But so much of this case remains hidden, locked away in classified files, buried in redacted documents, whispered about in corridors of power. If you're finding this case as suspicious as we do, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Because the deeper we dig, the darker this conspiracy gets. Stay with us because the most shocking details are still ahead. Oswald never got his day in court. Just 2 days after the assassination, he was being transferred to another facility when suddenly, in a room full of police and cameras, a man lunged forward and shot him point blank. That man was Jack Ruby, a Dallas nightclub owner with known connections to the Mafia. Why would Ruby, an otherwise unremarkable businessman, risk everything to kill Oswald? His official explanation: he wanted to spare Jackie Kennedy the pain of a trial. But that excuse never made sense. Ruby's past tells a different story. He had long-standing ties to organized crime and was reportedly seen with mob bosses in the days leading up to the assassination. Some believe he was sent to silence Oswald before he could reveal the truth. In prison, Ruby made cryptic statements hinting that he was part of something much bigger. He claimed he was injected with cancer to prevent him from talking. Whether or not that's true, one fact remains: he never got to testify in a meaningful way. Another loose end neatly tied up. If Oswald was merely a patsy, as he claimed, then who was behind the murder of JFK? Many believe the CIA had the strongest motive. Kennedy had threatened to dismantle the agency after the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion. He had fired its top officials. Did they strike back? The Mafia had their own reasons for wanting Kennedy dead. His brother, Robert Kennedy, had waged a relentless war against organized crime. Did the mob take matters into their own hands? And then there's Lyndon B. Johnson, Kennedy's ambitious vice president who was facing political ruin due to corruption scandals. He had the most to gain, and within hours of Kennedy's death, he was sworn in as president. The more you look at the evidence, the harder it is to believe the official story. The so-called magic bullet that allegedly struck both President Kennedy and Governor Connally followed a trajectory that seemed impossible, raising doubts about whether a single shooter could have caused all the wounds. Eyewitnesses in Dealey Plaza reported hearing shots from different directions, particularly from the Grassy Knoll, yet their testimonies were dismissed. The inconsistencies pile up, and with each unanswered question, the official explanation begins to unravel. Then there's Oswald himself. Apprehended just hours after the assassination, he barely had time to defend himself before he was silenced. His claim of being a patsy was never fully explored, and before he could stand trial, he was gunned down by Jack Ruby in what many believe was an effort to keep him from talking. The case was effectively closed, but the questions never stopped. The government itself has contradicted its own findings over the years. The House Select Committee on Assassinations later concluded that Kennedy was probably assassinated as a result of a conspiracy. Thousands of documents remain classified, fueling suspicion that something is still being hidden. If Oswald truly acted alone, why suppress evidence for decades? Could it be that the real masterminds of this assassination have never been exposed? That the truth was buried before it could ever come to light? The deeper you look, the more it seems that history's most infamous murder still holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. The JFK assassination didn't just take a president's life, it changed America forever. It marked the moment when people stopped believing in simple explanations. Maybe the full truth will never come out. Maybe it was lost long ago, or maybe, just maybe, it's still hidden in plain sight. What do you think? Was Oswald the lone gunman, or was this a grand conspiracy? Let us know in the comments, and if you love unraveling history's greatest mysteries, subscribe for more deep dives. Because as we've seen, history is never as simple as it seems.